This is the CineSnob Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 304 of the CineSnob Podcast. My name is Cody Villafana, and joining me this week is Kiko Martinez. Kiko, it is our third post-Jared show of this podcast and our third configuration of guests. First week was Yumi and Jocelyn. Week 2 was Yumi and Jared, and now it's just you and me.
Yeah, are you having any with Jared withdrawals by any chance?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of weeks in a row was tough. Now this is the first week back again without him. It's like I'm going through it all over again of losing him.
It's like he's teasing you a little bit.
Yeah, we got to get some kind of Ninja Turtles movie in here soon to clear it up.
Ninja Turtles, Transformers. I don't know what else is he into.
Gosh, I don't know.
McDonald's toys.
Yeah. If they ever make that, there was supposed to be a Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, McMillions. You remember that? They were supposed to make that into a narrative movie that I guess never happened. But yeah, that would have been. I think anything Affleck related would be his territory. But yeah, so we're making it work. And this week, StreamYard, our streaming service here, had a way to build in the intro and outro clips so we don't have a flub like I made last week when I clicked the button on our outro and looked like a fool in front of everyone.
At least it wasn't like a car horn or something like with morning radio shows.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I actually do, I think. Hold on, let me see here. Hold on.
There you go. There you go. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You could work for Kiss.
I'm half the way there. I got a bunch of toys here. Oh, and
there
then
you go.
Did Jared delete it? I think Jared might have deleted. Yeah, we had a funny video in here from the movie Money Plane, but I think Jared may have deleted the clip.
That's cool.
Joke's on me. So anyway, so this is your third show back, and this is also probably the longest stretch you've had in a while of like regularly covering movies, right? Like, how has it been to get back into the swing of things of like covering things every week?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I watch tons of movies still because most of the stuff that I'm doing is like interviewing the talent that's coming out or that's doing something with the movie, whether it's an actor or director, but to actually have something, where I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to watch these 3 movies or these 2 movies this week for sure. Then, I mean, it's been fine. I watch way too much stuff as it is. I just don't really, I haven't been reviewing as much stuff as I would have liked to. So to get back into it and just kind of share my opinion has been a lot of fun. And then, of course, I've been writing reviews for so long that it's kind of funny just to look at it now that I'm just speaking reviews instead. And I mean, you have to admit it's a lot easier than sitting down for an hour and a half to write something. So
I think it takes the same amount of time to like speak a review as it does to take me to write an intro to a review.
Oh yeah, and I'm real bad. I'm real picky about my words and stuff. So yeah. I, like just right now, I've been working on a couple of interviews today, and it's taken me like 4 or 5 hours just to write 2 of them. So
yeah, well,
it's a lot of time.
And then when you're speaking, like, since we for anyone who doesn't know this, we're doing this live in one take, and we always have. We've never really gone in and edited things. So that's the other thing where we're not constantly editing ourselves or going back and rewriting things or finding the perfect word or clever thing. Yeah. It's just so much easier.
Yeah, it's funny, though, when people ask, like, oh, it'd be so cool to, review movies for a living. Then I have to explain to them that they actually have to watch it and then sit down and write something that they don't realize. They don't realize that part. Like, oh, yeah, I forgot that part.
I think what I always tell people about it when people ask about it is, like, it's great when you love a movie. It's great when you hate a movie. But if you're, like a totally, like, B-, totally fine movie, that is the hardest review to write for me. It's just that movie where it's, like, it's totally fine. I don't feel anything one way or another.
Right. And I've always had a lot of respect for the critics. And I think you and I would fall underneath that are open to watching everything under the sun, Yeah. There's some critics out there that only watch the superhero movies or only watch the horror movies. And if you throw like an independent film at them, they're going to be like, why would I review this? Right. But we've always been open to that. I think that's probably one of the reasons, we've been around for so long. It's not just genre films or things like that. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not just Jurassic Park and Transformers movies.
Well, look, if you want, I mean, you weren't reviewing in the dark days of the pandemic, but we were scrapping for stuff, and we were reviewing like the lowest rent VOD stuff imaginable during that time. We covered some movies that I bet like 100 people saw. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was crazy. But that's what we've always liked to do. I mean, we've always liked to cover the small stuff along with the bigger stuff, and
Mhm.
yeah, I think we've got two movies that are on either end of that spectrum here today. So why don't we go ahead and jump in?
Here are this week's reviews.
So first off, for this week, we have Joker Folie Deux. So this is the follow-up to the first Joker movie that came out, I believe, in 2019, directed by Todd Phillips. And if you recall back then, Todd Phillips, mostly a comedy director known for the Hangover movies, and seemed like an interesting choice for a Joker movie, and was a very divisive movie. That is no better displayed than the idea that you and I had two very different opinions on the first Joker movie. You liked it quite a bit, and I loathed it. It was a movie that both me and Jared, back when we were doing the podcast with just him and I, both really did not like it. Did not get good reviews on this podcast, but we were talking about it at Joker Folie Deux, one of those rare movies that is fresh on Rotten Tomatoes but not certified fresh. So it's that those are super rare to come by, and just my opinions of it. You can talk about it, your opinions when we get there. But my opinions of it was that it was just very derivative. It really felt like Todd Phillips was trying to make his version of his Scorsese movie, and it sort of aped a bunch of stuff from both King of Comedy and Taxi Driver, and seemingly had nothing to really do with Batman or the Batman franchise or the DC comics, and was at its worst like edgelordian sort of like very try-hardy stuff that I just did not work for me. So this is the sequel to that movie, which made a lot of money, was very successful financially, at least. Won Joaquin Phoenix an Oscar for his portrayal of the Joker, second actor to win an Oscar for portraying that character. And this movie is so interesting because it follows this trend that we have seen happening a little bit more recently, as recently as earlier this year, when the remake of Mean Girls came out, which is that this is a sneaky musical. It is a musical that is not being marketed as such. It is a musical that doesn't feature any of the actors in it singing songs in the trailers at all. This is more of a jukebox musical, meaning that it is like versions of already recorded songs. These are not original songs, but
Right.
But it is a straight up musical. There's maybe like 10 or around 10 or so like music like song like full song renditions, maybe less than 10, but closer to like more than 5, less than 10 probably. And so I think the first thing to know, if you haven't seen this movie and you're trying to figure out whether you want to, is you should probably know that, because I think that a lot of people are very are like, I've been reading a lot of reports that people are like walking out when they
Yeah.
realize that it's a musical, which I feel like is the case with a lot of musicals for people who aren't into it. But unless you are like us and like read the stuff that's being written about the movie being like coming out and in production, you may not have any clue that that's what this is. And so the movie basically picks up with Arthur Fleck, the character, the sort of like real life guy that his alter ego is Joker, in Arkham after the events of the first Joker movie, where he murdered several people, and basically he is about to stand trial for the murders that he committed in the first movie. And while he is imprisoned, runs into Harley Quinn, played by Lady Gaga, and they start to develop a relationship. Arthur starts to develop you know, feelings for her, and she starts to influence him as he's put on trial. And basically that's kind of like the core story of the movie. And I feel like this movie is in a weird place where, like, I think if you did not like the first Joker movie, I don't think this one is going to win you over. And I feel like if you did like the first Joker movie, this one is also not going to win you over. My predominant thought when I was watching this movie is I was trying to figure out who this movie is for. And I really still can't pinpoint it, because I feel like if you're a fan of like the comics or the character, there's nothing in this movie that is anything like related to Batman or a Batman villain or anything like that. Also, if you're into the character, I don't know where this intersection of like comic book fan and musical fan comes into play, but there are a lot of songs in the movie.
Right.
And the musical element is something that I don't really feel works at all. I can't think of a single instance in which I found them effective. I think visually, there's some scenes that are sort of like this magic realism type, dream scenario kind of stuff where, they're performing on like big stages or like TV show stages or something like that, where it looks nice, but the songs don't really, captivate much. I don't think they add much to the story, especially because the whole idea here is they're so overwhelmed with what's going on that the only thing that they know how to do is sing. It just doesn't really track for me. Also, it's weird that they create a musical out of this movie and like don't let Lady Gaga like truly sing until like the very end. Like halfway through the movie, she's like purposely singing bad. And it's just a weird choice to take someone like her and like make her not a great singer for a good portion of the movie. And then finally towards the end, she really starts, singing like we all kind of know that she can and does. That relationship between Harley and Arthur again doesn't really, pan out for me. I was not a big fan of Joaquin Phoenix's performance in the first one. To me, it's just sort of like random laughing bursts and stuff like that. And in this one, I don't think the performance is all that great. I don't like the choices that are made. Like there's one, there's a part in the movie where Arthur decides to be his own attorney and then starts talking like a Southern attorney inside the courtroom. And I did not like that choice at all. Yeah. And really what this movie boils down to is like a courtroom movie where a huge amount of the movie takes place inside of courtroom, kind of relitigating the events of the first Joker. And now you can read into the sort of analysis of the movie that a lot of people are making, I think, that the movie is meant to sort of be an indictment of the first movie and perhaps the people who liked the first movie, and kind of like a teardown of like worshiping this character for the wrong reasons. And like that's sort of like the messaging sent throughout it. And like whatever, like sure, I guess I could buy into that as being a storyline. That doesn't mean that it's effective at doing so, especially when the movie that you get is so dull and uninteresting. So for me, that's the thing I take away from it. Is like I don't think the musical elements of it work at all, and I think that it is such a huge part of the movie that it's hard to kind of like ignore. And then aside from the musical elements, it's this really dull retreading of the first film that kind of brings back a bunch of characters and actors from it. And to me, doesn't do anything at all to the mythology. The story doesn't really, resonate as being this like huge, like I think what it's supposed to do is like maybe like a gotcha of the people who are, who like maybe liked or look up to this Joker, the Joker as a character. I don't think that it's a well-connected piece there. And I think, if anything, it that takes it a step further in alienating the audience that did like it. Notwithstanding like the idea that the musical elements itself are probably alienating its original audience too. So for me, I don't know that I actively hated it as much as the first movie, just because at least like this is something different, and it doesn't feel like a direct copy of those other Scorsese movies or something like that. So I don't know that I actively hated it as much, but for me, it's completely ineffective. But Kiko, what were your thoughts and feelings on this one?
Yeah, it's funny. I'll go back to the original one, and not to harp on what I felt about that one and how different we are, but I did enjoy the first one. I thought it was a kind of an audacious comic book movie. There was no remorse. It was dirty. It was ugly. I'm not saying that it was like the best movie ever, but I think it came out in a time where it was just a kind of a dangerous film to put out. I think it had a lot of like mixed messages and things like that. But there was something like really, I don't know, the word debauchery is too strong of a word, but there was something unwell about that movie that was released during that time that shouldn't have really happened. But for that reason, I thought it was a really strong film. I understand where you're coming from with the whole Scorsese thing. I think it just all depends on how much you're comparing them, or you see too much of it. I'd rather see somebody fake a Scorsese film than like Damien Chazelle fake a P.T. Anderson film the way he did with Babylon a couple of years ago. So I guess it just depends on who you're looking at and what kind of films are coming from those people. So I think again, the original was very ugly. But it was something that I found kind of fascinating to watch Joaquin kind of lose himself in that character. Sorry, you were going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, I think the difference being that like there is a difference between being influenced by stuff and then having something like Joker, in my opinion, be like a retread. I mean, Joker, the first Joker is basically king of comedy. Like it's like
Right.
like there's like almost identical beats in it. So that's the thing that rubbed me the wrong way. Is not so much the influence of it, but like the straight up copycatting of it. But
Yeah.
go on.
That's fair enough. Yeah, I felt, again, I'm not when it comes to the messaging, I thought it was the originals. The original is very mean spirited. I'm not going to say anything different than that. I just for some reason I don't know, it hit me a little bit more than most people. Going into this one though, I'm the audience, right? You see it. Who is this movie for? I think the movie is for the people who want to continue seeing this story unfold and see what the next chapter is, right? So if you're walking into this not liking the original, you're not gonna like the new one. And like you said, if you like the original, it's a mixed bag. I mean, for me, it didn't work at all. I'm on board with you. I didn't think it was a good courtroom drama. I didn't think it was a good love story, and I definitely didn't think the musical numbers worked at all. I'm not sure if it's because it was they weren't originals. I would have liked to have seen something original, a couple of original songs come out in it. That would have been an interesting take. I didn't know. I knew that it was a musical, unlike some people, but I didn't realize that it was going to be all already songs that were already in the out there for people. So so the idea of the Joker coming back was intriguing to me, but the way that they set it up, the love story, none of that really panned out. The musical numbers, they were pretty boring, I thought. You're right with the Lady Gaga. I'm not sure if she was brought into this because it was going to be a musical, or kind of changed plans on in the film because she was part of it. I'm not sure about that. Maybe but I think that overall, like just the way that it like came together in all these different ways, like the courtroom drama, it just all clashed way too much. I thought that the story itself was just. I was watching the courtroom drama, and halfway through, I was like, "This feels like the series finale of Seinfeld." For a second, I thought, because they're bringing all these people back from the first one, and they're like,
I saw that comparison go around a little bit.
Oh, you did? I haven't seen that. Well, I haven't really been reading a lot of the reviews, so that's one of the things that I was thinking of when that happened. And then
another thing that Todd Phillips copies.
Right, exactly. I didn't think I loved Joaquin Phoenix's performance on the first one. I didn't think he had enough content to do anything with in this one, and added to Lady Gaga's as well. There wasn't enough character there to build a really strong pairing there. And then as it was continuing to go on, kind of slogging through the whole thing, we'll put a spoiler alert out there, but I'm not going to ruin too much. Something happens at the end that is just totally unearned. A character comes in that does something really big, and it's like, who is this guy? Who is this person that just completely change the trajectory of this series, and why is it happening? It was almost like a fuck you to the audience, basically. I thought.
You're talking about the very end, right?
The very end.
Yeah. A lot of people are really not digging that ending.
Yeah, that ending was terrible for me. I won't give too much away, but it just really felt unearned. Like they just threw it in there to kind of just stop everything from happening, and then roll the credits, and then that's it. Get out of here, buddy. You're never gonna get anything from us again when it comes to the Joker.
Yeah.
So I just think that that was a lazy way of ending it. I thought that there wasn't enough content or enough characterizations in both of these characters to build a really strong love story out of it. And it definitely missed for me completely. And I was going in there with some pretty high hopes because of how much I liked the first one. So.
Yeah, and I will say, like, not to be like overwhelmingly negative about it, I do think that it continues the trend of like looking really great. I think the cinematography is really fantastic. I think it really nails the 70s aesthetic once again, where it feels lived in. I was trying to think of a performance that I really like enjoyed, but I don't think that there was one. Like it doesn't even get anything good out of Brendan Gleeson, who is almost always great in everything.
Yeah.
In a side role there. It's just a weird kind of like misfire on all elements, and also too, just like it felt excruciatingly long, and I just don't know. It's like 2.5 hours, and it's just like the there's a certain point where these things become self-indulgent, and I do think that the first movie was self-indulgent, but I do think this is like next level self-indulgence.
Yeah, and the score didn't even touch me like the way that it did. I mean, the score in the original movie won an Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
I doubt that it's going to be that praised this time around. I'm not sure.
I don't think it was the same person this time around.
It was. I saw her name in the credits, so maybe they didn't. Maybe they used some of her work, but
it might have been. Let me see here. I'll look that up while you're talking there.
So yeah,
I think it is actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So things like that just didn't really hit for me as hard as they did in the original one. But yeah, I again, just this new one, there's just so many different weird like genre things happening that just didn't. It's like putting a puzzle piece together from two or three different puzzles. You're just like kind of mixed up and don't know where to go from certain scenes to the next. So.
Well, and I think it's a problem because the first movie was so alienating. Like say what you will about the movie, the one thing that you can't say about it is that it wasn't super divisive. Like it was very, very divisive when it came out. People either loved it or hated it, right? And I think when you're taking a love or hate movie and creating a sequel out of it and then making it a musical, which is also very divisive, where people either love or hate them, you're kind of like doubling down on trying to like alienate as much people as possible. And like I get that like part of the sort of like rebel filmmaking, if you want to call it that, is like pushing the boundaries like that. But we're talking about a movie here that had a budget of like almost $200 million. I think it was like $190 million, and it's making like 40 of that back in week one, which is presumably its highest week. And not to mention, I think its word of mouth is going to be bad because once people figure out it's a musical, they're not going to want to go and see it. And that's nothing. I mean, I don't have anything against musicals. I think they're fine, but they're not a lot of people's cup of tea, especially compounding on the idea that Joker was not everybody's cup of tea either. So it feels like such a risky move.
Very risky. Yeah, very risky.
And I don't think that it's going to pay. I mean, it's already not paying off. It is by the standards of the first movie, the budget and everything else, it's bombing right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like asking a huge fan of Scarface to go watch like Oklahoma or something like that. Right. I don't know. It's just like, they're not the same audience. Like it's not going to work. Yeah. So I think, you and I are completely on board. And I was disappointed. I could see you smiling at me like, I told you this series sucked.
Yes, it is. There's a lot of I told you so's happening across the country this week.
I bet definitely.
But yeah, let's go on and move on to our final thoughts and grades. So for me, again, I literally do not know who this movie is for. Again, if you like the first one, I don't think that you're going to like this second one because I don't think that it brings over any of the same stuff that it did. It's not as boundary pushing. It's not as edgy. It's not as violent. And it really kind of makes the character of Joker crumble but by the end of it, and then you've got the musical stuff on top of that. If you didn't like the first movie, I can't imagine why or what you would see in this new one that would draw you into it. So for me, I just don't think the musical elements of it work, and it's too big of a part of the movie. Like, again, it is a flat out musical. Like, it's not a song with, or excuse me, a film with songs in it. I would call it a musical. So for me, I'm going to give it a C. Kiko, your thoughts?
Yeah, what was it about the director that said that he was pushing back on the musical?
So there was a thing where I think it was a Lady Gaga quote, where she said something like, "It's not a musical. It's like a movie where people are trying to express their emotions and they don't know how to do it, so they do it in song." And that's, I don't know. I don't remember if it was Phillips or Lady Gaga. I think it was Lady Gaga who said that, but by either way, that's what a musical is. Like,
Yeah.
like that's exactly what it is. People sing, to express how they're feeling.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I agree with you. I would definitely not recommend this film. If you like the first one, you're probably not going to like it. And if you definitely shouldn't go if you didn't like the first one. There's nothing to add on or try to sway from that opinion. I think they're both very realistically grim. And that's about all I can say in terms of comparing the two, what you would get from both of them. I didn't think Joaquin brought his A game like he did on the first one. I don't think the score hit as much. And then the clashing of the different types of genre, from the courtroom to the love story to the musical itself, did not work for me one bit. And that ending it's not even like just one of those endings that is bad in terms of like, it looked nice, it was shot well. I just thought it was just a big cop out and really kind of just, rubbed it in the face of people who actually was hoping that, other stuff would happen. So I just think it was an easy cop out, way out. And shame on everybody for this movie. And I'm giving it a C-.
Ooh, worse than me.
Worse
yeah.
than me.
It hurt you enough to where it made you go a little bit lower.
Tiny bit.
Yeah. So let's move on to our final film of the week. It's What's Inside. So It's What's Inside is a movie that premiered at Sundance in January. I did not see it there because it played as part of the in-person and not online screening. But interestingly, it was acquired by Netflix at Sundance for $17 million, and it was the highest I guess like purchase of Sundance. So it was the highest purchase from a distributor, which is interesting again because it feels like this movie is once again an example of a movie that a streamer is just sort of like dropping online with limited fanfare. This movie I don't think is getting a lot of publicity. I don't think a lot of people know about it, but yet Netflix spent almost $20 million to acquire it at Sundance. And it is a movie that I want to sort of like preface by saying it is one of those movies that I think is best to go into cold without knowing what it's about. I am going to spoil the basic premise of the movie right now. So if you're sensitive to spoilers and you don't even want to know what the movie is about, pause, go watch the movie on Netflix, come back and listen. Or if you don't care, I'm going to spoil it. But basically, this movie is about this group of friends. I think there's 8 or 9 friends total, who are all getting back together for one of their weddings, and so they meet back at one of their houses. And one of the friends, a long lost friend, arrives with a suitcase, and inside this suitcase is this form of technology that allows for body swapping. And so what they end up doing is turning this body swapping technology into a party game, and decide to swap bodies, and basically there's a lot of like interpersonal friend drama and relationship drama going on. leading up to the events of this party and during the party, and you get to see sort of this kind of play out over the course of the movie, and that's all I'm going to say about it. But I think that with this movie, I don't know if did you see Bodies, the movie from. So that's the movie that I think most closely resembles. That was a movie. I think it was an A24 movie, if I'm not mistaken.
A24,
that came out
right?
A year or two ago. I think last year. And this is very much like a Gen Z-ish, kind of like borderline millennial Gen Z type movie that has characters that are influencers, and a lot of it takes place with like showing jealousy of like Instagram followers, so it feels very modern, and it is a spin on sort of like having like seeing relationship dramas unfold in like really a really unique and interesting way. I think the thing that struck me the most about this movie is I think this movie is like incredibly directed. So the director's name is Greg Jardin, and there's some the things that stuck out to me the most is like with body swapping movies, there is sort of like if you think about something like Jumanji or something like that, that plays because the actors in the movie, like what Kevin Hart or Jack Black or The Rock are supposed to act like, and so when they're inhabiting one another, it becomes believable because you have established personalities or actors or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
What I think makes this movie so successful in many ways is that this movie does so with like way more characters, like 8 or 9 characters that are all swapping bodies, and it does so with like a visual language that I think is super clever, because this movie could have been really hard to track and understand, like who is who in any given moment, but it does a couple of things that are really clever that I think allow you to follow the movie like super quickly. So it incorporates visual stylings of like occasionally it'll kind of like pan around and show you like the real people inside the bodies with like red lighting on it and with like a cool visual style. It also has this this thing where they like pin Polaroids of the real person to the actor, so like who is inside whose body, and I think that's like really great visual language that makes it easy to understand. And in that case, like you can see like little bits of these actors like swapping around and playing each other in ways that allow you to kind of establish their personalities early on and then see them through the eyes of other characters later. And I think that creates some great tension and drama in terms of like the interpersonal stuff. And then I think it also does this really great visual thing where when a character is like telling a story, it will show like a still photograph of like the events of the story they're telling, and then with each new detail it'll like change something out or swap something out, or like if someone like corrects the story, they'll like swap something out in it, and they do that a few times in the movies. Just like really clever visual filmmaking. Outside of that, there's great lighting in the movie. It's really well lit. There's great like camera angles. I just think that this movie, like, I'm really interested to see what Greg Jardin does in the future. This is his first feature film, and I think there's like loads of talent behind the camera and from a visual standpoint. From a story standpoint, it is kind of standard and basic. It is your sort of like friend group drama kind of thing. But again, I think its premise of the body swapping allows things to like really ramp up from a drama standpoint, especially when you have characters who've been friends for a long time with like established relationships and hidden crushes and all of these feelings, and then they get to inhabit bodies and interact as different people and live out fantasies and stuff like that. I actually think it's a pretty it takes a pretty like standard and simple story and actually kind of dives into some like unique what if type scenarios using this kind of body swapping technology. And then by the end of it, I think the end like really like ratchets up the tension. There's something that happens in the third act of the movie that kind of like adds another layer of complication behind like the already like weird ethical pieces of what's going on, and it creates like a really challenging situation and dilemma. And I have to say that I was kind of like eating it all up. I really enjoyed the tone of the movie. I can see how a lot of people might find the characters like annoying or frustrating, because I think every character to some degree is meant to be some level of like frustrating or annoying. And there are a couple of characters that aren't really necessarily fleshed out, but by the end of it, it's not so much the characters themselves, but the situations that are happening that I think really add tension, add humor, add interest. It throws together this like interesting concept that's like weirdly lo-fi, where it's kind of like the mechanism, the doodad itself is like really like simple looking, and then it's really just kind of using camera tricks and a bunch of other stuff to kind of really accentuate it. So yeah, I honestly had a really good time, and this movie took me by surprise. I think it's really successful. Kiko, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with everything you just said, except for the Greg Jarden directorial piece. I thought the way that some of the decisions he made, the camera work was really, really good in this. Like you said, the way that the camera spun on certain instances. I can see Greg using Greg, because he's, me and him are on
you guys are buddies
game basis. I could see him using this as a calling card into way bigger projects. I mean, people are going to be able to see what he does here. He's going to get a Marvel movie in the next 5 years, definitely. Something like that's going to happen with this guy, definitely. But I think that maybe you're a little smarter than I am, but some of the stuff I had to I watched this at home, so I had to rewind a little bit and try to figure out what I was watching. Maybe because I wasn't paying as close attention as you were, but I got lost in some of the back and forth things with the swapping. Some of the characters were just way over the top for me in terms of just the unlikability. So putting 9 of these personalities in the same house or the same room was just a little bit too much for me. I did like some of the interactions between some of the kids. I'm saying kids, are probably young adults, right?
Yeah.
But I think that some of those things work. Some of those relationships things did definitely work, but I think most of that came a lot from Greg's direction, and not specifically from the screenplay, because like you said before, this isn't anything new. We've seen a million body swap movies before. Some have been done well, some have been done pretty badly. This just stylistically did something a little bit different than I've seen before, but I don't think it was enough for me to recommend, because it kind of just fell in that same kind of kind of a category. Again, it did some interesting things, and the direction was the most impressive part of it. But just overall, I think that some of the kids, again, the way that they kind of came off to me, it felt a little bit hollow. And then the twists and the turns, of course, happen in movies like this. Something that does happen, I won't spoil it, spoiler alert type of thing, but the last part of this film that kind of like wraps up everything. I do not like movies that do things like that kind of like, okay, this is why this happened, let's take you back, and then roll the tape, and then they show like kind of, or not roll the tape, specifically, but they kind of explain everything and how everything kind of came to be. I think that's just a lazy way of writing, in my opinion. Sometimes it works, it just depends on the situation. And here I didn't think that it worked to kind of like put a bow on everything. So I think 2 thumbs up definitely for the direction. I'll totally agree with you on that. I can't wait to see what Greg does in the future. And I think that this is a good first step for him as somebody that's coming up. I know he's done a lot of TV. I'm not sure if he's done too much film, but
it's his first feature. Yeah,
it's his first feature. Yeah, no, then definitely. I didn't know that. I think that definitely this is going to be something that he's going to be able to use to get bigger projects, and they'll come his way definitely if Mark Webb can get the Spider-Man, then he can get something big too. So
yeah, for sure. And I know that the sort of like the cast was a mixed bag for you, but I really liked James Morosini in the role here. So if you remember, he was the guy who made and wrote and directed I Love My Dad, the movie with Patton Oswalt. This is the only other thing I've ever seen him in, and I actually really liked him.
What character was he?
He was Cyrus, the guy in the main couple in the beginning of the movie.
Oh, okay. I like the guy that brought the box.
Okay, yeah, that guy. Did you recognize who that is?
No, I didn't.
It's a deep cut. I was like, who is that? That guy looks so familiar. So he was one of the kids in Win Win.
He wasn't the main kid though, right?
No. He was like the weird kind of friend of that movie, the Paul Giamatti wrestling movie that is amazing.
Guys, listeners, if you haven't seen Win Win with Paul Giamatti, that's a great film.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that this is a great stepping stone. I mean, as a first feature, this movie is like the visual language is just so well put together. It's a very, like, you could tell how confident, I saw one person interact on social media calling it kind of like show offy, but for me, it's just like, again, it's just such a clever way to tell what could be a complicated story, because like the visual style of it is like actually helps you like engage with the movie more. So I like found all of that stuff really exciting and interesting. And we'll go ahead and get into wrap ups and final thoughts and grades. But yeah, I mean, the word that comes to mind for me when I was watching this was fun. I got really wrapped up in the story itself, the twists and turns, like you said. I think, like I said, there's one really big turn that happens in the middle of it that makes you go like, oh shit, at the implications of like what's gonna happen at this point. The ending of it all, I think it's only cheap in a way that it kind of like introduces something that you wouldn't really, like, you weren't thinking could even be a possibility as an explanation for something. And that I don't always love, when kind of like a curveball is thrown in there, but it does leave you with the moment of like trying to figure out, like, I wonder what is going to happen and how this resolves. And by the end of it, I was really feeling that tension, as like there's knocks on the door and they're trying to decide what to do. So for me, I got wrapped up in the drama of it all. I think it's really fun. I think it's a director to watch. Normally I would give this a B-, but because it's so visually awesome, I'm giving it a solid B. Kiko, your
Nice.
final thoughts and grade.
You brought up Bodies. Another one that I would have compared it to, that as I was watching it, I was like, oh, this feels like a very grounded type of film. I'm not sure if you saw the movie Climax. I think it came out in 2008.
Oh.
Gaspar Noir film. It's just about a bunch of dancers that go to a party and they drink LSD laced sangria. So the whole thing is kind of just their experience through the night. This felt a little bit like that. It had kind of like that tone to it, in my opinion, except it didn't go nearly as nuts as that one did. So I thought it was a lot of the interaction between characters was fun. There was a lot of a good dialogue that went into that. But just overall, as a film, I think the body swap thing has been done way too much. It's just an overblown thing right now, and I really need something story wise to kind of really get me into the actual story and the narrative that's being presented here. And then I just really wasn't a fan of the ending sequence that happened when everything kind of comes into play and kind of wraps up for audiences. But I'll die on that hill of the director and what he's able to bring and what he's able to accomplish with the styling that he did. So I can't wait to see what he does next in terms of the next project he decides to choose. And I think I told you one grade, but I'm going to add a little bit more to it. I was going to go with a C, but I'm going to change mine up to a C+ now. So not recommended, but it's not you can do a lot worse than it's what's inside this weekend.
Yeah, you absolutely can. And again, it's out on Netflix for anyone to see, easy to watch, easy to find. I wish they were promoting it more, because at the very least, I think it is an interesting alternative to what's in theaters this week. So you are much better off watching this than you are watching Joker Folie à Deux.
Yeah, I don't get Netflix's. I mean, it's all the streamers.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before. I just don't understand how they're working this out. Maybe they just are focused on word of mouth. That's the way that Netflix works now, right?
But that's the thing, right? That's the problem, is that Netflix has caught fire with word of mouth with TV shows, right? So like Stranger Things, Tiger King, these are things that like everyone was watching and everyone was aware of, and it was in the zeitgeist. They have not reached that with a movie yet, I don't think.
The one that comes to mind that nobody saw at the theaters, but everybody started talking about Netflix was earlier this year with that Latino golf movie that came out. People just blew it up on Netflix, and people were writing think pieces about. I was like, you're like 3 months too late, guys. But anyway, stuff like that, I think it happens every so often. I think the top 10 lists that they put up there, I mean, people are just like, oh, everybody loves this one, let's watch it, and that's just the way it goes.
And it's always a bunch of old shit. Like if you look at the top 10, like let me see if I can look it up. Top 10 trending Netflix right now. I bet you it's a bunch of like super weird shit. Okay, here we go. Global top 10. Okay, number 7 on Netflix right now is Hitman Agent 47.
Because people are thinking that they're going to watch Hitman with with
this is
what's his name?
this is a 2015 reboot of Hitman that right now had 3.5 million views this week. So
is that the one? Who's in that? That's a bald Hitman, right?
That's Rupert Friend is in the lead role. Yeah.
Wow.
So again, it's just crazy. And like in this top, this was for last week, so I'm interested to see if it's what's inside, cracks this. But again, like, the first Sing movie had 3.2 million movies. The other Hitman movie had 4.9 million. So people were watching both this week for some reason. So anyway, it's just crazy how Netflix is operating right now. But
what are the chances that people are just watching the wrong Hitman? Like they're hearing from their friends, you got to watch Hitman, and they go.
I don't know, because people watched both millions of times last week. So yeah,
that's hilarious. I'd love to just get into the brain of somebody that really doesn't follow movies and just takes suggestions from their coworkers or whatever it is.
Yeah, or their algorithms on Netflix.
Or their algorithms, yeah.
Well, that's going to do it for this week. So next week, we actually have a trio of movies that all premiered, or not premiered, but played at Fantastic Fest a couple of weeks ago, two of which were secret screenings. We have Saturday Night, the Jason Reitman movie about the first episode of Saturday Night Live. We have The Apprentice, a movie starring Sebastian Stan and Jeremy Strong about Donald Trump and Roy Cohn. And then we have a Shudder movie called Daddy's Head that also played at Fantastic Fest. So we got 3 movies lined up for you next week, and I've only seen 2 of those. I haven't watched Daddy's Head yet, but I have a screener. So and there's also Piece by Piece, the Pharrell movie that comes out next week. I don't know if we're going to cover it. They're not screening it for us, so maybe if we each have time, but otherwise we'll be covering those 3. So if you'd like to reach us, please find us on Facebook, Twitter, any socials that you can find. Also, we're really looking for reviews. So if you listen to this episode or any episodes and you like us, give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. It would be really helpful. We're looking to exponentially grow those numbers by the end of the year. And coming soon, hopefully a new updated CineSnob.net, where we'll be kind of active on the website again and posting our reviews and any content that we have. And anything else you can think of, Kiko?
No, I'm looking forward to watching Donald Trump on film this next week. So
it will be interesting to see how people react to it. I think that it's maybe not the movie that people think it is, but it was a weird Fantastic Fest movie. I think a lot of people were surprised that they played it. I think get ready for Jeremy Strong in the movie, because he is incredible. But that's all I'll say. We'll save the rest for next week. And that'll do it for this week's episode of the CineSnob Podcast. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit CineSnob.net. See you next week.